All right. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another daily vlog. Still not doing great, as you probably can guess. Um, Wanted to start off by thanking everyone that said nice things. My video yesterday. Sincerely appreciate that. For anyone worrying that I'm going to be pushing myself to make these vlogs, that's the exact reason why I made yesterday's vlog, to basically explain um, if the next week's worth of vlogs are just a minute long, that's why. And then that takes a lot of the responsibility in my brain off of me, because I've already told you guys, hey, it's going to be like this week. The reason that I'm just not stopping them completely so I can rest, it is they still provide just a structure, which is really, really important. I've mentioned this before, but because I'm disabled, I don't have a job or any kind of schedule that I have to keep to. I have therapy once a week, and then I have my two games that I run once a week each. So, other than that, there's nothing to really tell the difference between a Monday and a Tuesday or a Thursday or anything like that. And because my sleep schedule is effectively non existent, and my damn phone, for whatever reason, I cannot make my phone, which I use effectively as my watch, I can't make my phone put AM or PM on the lock screen, because I don't want to have to open up my phone every single time just to figure out if it's AM or PM. And again, because I live in a basement, I don't have a day-night cycle that I did deal with. The only window in this entire room is right there, and it's covered in cardboard, because if I don't, it gives a really, really bad glare to my computer. So yeah, I mean, without these daily vlogs, at least right now, I really don't have anything that helps me figure out what day it is. And that can feel very overwhelming. And it's something that a lot of disabled and retired people have to kind of deal with, is finding a way to give their life structure. So, that being said, I did have something could come up that I wanted to talk about, just because it makes me feel slightly more normal to talk about the things. So we're going to talk about something today. And that is, there is some drama happening on the interwebs with a streamer that I have never watched before. But they are, I don't know if they're a part of OTK or they are somehow associated with Asmongold or something like that. But Asmongold, really big MMO streamer, reacted to this video, and the video has been making the rounds, and people have been freaking out and getting really, really upset about it. I have not watched either Asmongold's reaction or neither Asmongold's reaction nor I think it's Hassan might be the one that did it. If I'm 100% wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. But I haven't watched the original video either. I have just listened to some recaps and read some reactions to it. And normally I'm a huge believer in get it from the primary source. Don't listen to other people telling you what they think that this person said, because telephoning happens and then it gets changed. The reason I don't care in this particular instance is because this is a topic I've talked about before, and I think this is just a really good example. No matter what was actually said, This is actually an extremely common issue with people. The basics of what is alleged is that this streamer, which again I think is Hassan, I might be wrong, but I'm just going to call it them the streamer. This streamer went on not a tirade, just kind of started complaining about streaming because it's hard. It is. And he mentioned feeling really, really drained. And claimed that being a streamer is so much more emotionally draining than like a 9 to 5 job, and that nobody understands. And that got a huge amount of backlash. And it's not really surprising why. Do I think that means the backlash is justified? We'll get into that. But it's not surprising. People view streaming in general as not a real job. It's, you know, you're just playing video games and getting paid to do it. It's the easiest thing in the world. And in no way, shape, or form is it an easy job, especially once you get as big as these streamers that are streaming to thousands of people at a time for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours at a time. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. Now, does that mean that it's harder than doing a 9 to 5 or working in retail? Fuck no. And this goes back to something I've said quite a few times. Every job sucks. I don't care what your job is. I don't care how idyllic it may seem, how much you love your job. Every job sucks. And what I mean by that is every job has an aspect to it that people outside that field know nothing about. And if they did know that that was a part of that job, they would never, ever want to have that job. I was talking to my therapist about it, and my therapist mentioned, no, I love my job. I said, well, and that's great, and I'm super, super happy for you. But there are aspects of your job that are not fun. I don't know your job as well as you do, but I would assume the massive amount of nonsense paperwork that you are required to do for your job, especially during something like an audit, or if something happens where you're called to court to testify, you know, those are all things that can happen to license the therapist, and they're not fun. And especially if you have to deal with insurance or billing or anything like that, it is unbelievably complicated and just pedantic to deal with insurance companies and things like that. So while, yes, she absolutely loves her job, and I love her for it. It makes her a great therapist, and she's helped me immensely. But there's always things that most people don't understand, and they think, oh, well, it's super easy. And I know that good example, like everybody thinks about retail, and I don't think anybody believes that retail is a quote unquote easy job. Or I think a lot of people think retail is an incredibly easy job, but nobody thinks it's a good job. Let's put it that way, which it isn't. But I don't think people quite understand the emotional toll that working in retail does to you, especially if you work in retail for a large company. Because what eventually happens is every single person that has ever worked in retail for a significant period of time, and I'm talking probably more than about a year, because I think it's possible for you to go an entire year without this happening. I don't think it's possible to go more than a year without this happening. Everyone in retail has had this experience. Customer has come in upset about something the employee has no control over. It might not even have anything to do with something that the company itself has done. Customer just come in angry. They want to take out their anger on the employee. Customer doesn't just yell at the employee. They eviscerate them. They do everything they can to ensure that this employee understands that they are the lowest most disgusting piece of scum on the planet. And it doesn't matter what the employee does in that interaction. The customer is going to make a complaint to corporate, single out that employee, and corporate is going to take the customer's side. Now, they won't generally fire the employee unless they're a really, really bad company. But they will tell the employee that they were in the wrong for however they handled it. If they handled it by apologizing, they were in the wrong because they didn't do enough. If they handled it by sticking up for themselves, they were in the wrong because the customer is always right, or you can't treat customers like that. If they dealt with it by just getting physically away from the customer, well, you can't abandon customers like that. That's not good customer service. And basically what happens to most retail employees is you are told on a regular basis by everyone that comes into the store, you are scum, you are worthless, you do not deserve to be treated as a human. And then the higher ups in the company agree. And this happens over and over and over and over. That's why retail has a remarkably high turnover rate. Another fun fact, I've talked about this before, retail is remarkably dangerous to work in. More retail employees are killed every year than police officers. You are more likely to be hurt on the job, bad enough that it requires you to take time off the job to heal as a retail employee than you are as a police officer or almost any other field. Really, the only ones that are worse than that are ones that have very, very high mortality rates, things like construction workers and stuff like that. They're the only ones that are really more dangerous than working as a retail employee. Most people have no idea about that. They just think these people are lazy and don't want to actually have to work for their pay. No, they're told on a regular basis that they are worthless, they're scum, and they don't deserve to be treated as humans. And then the people that are there that are meant to protect them, for the most part, meant to ensure that they can do the job that they're supposed to, will agree with the customers and say, yeah, these people are completely worthless shit. And they won't do it outright by saying, well, the customer was right, you are worthless. No, they will ensure that the employees understand that they were wrong by finding a way to punish them for standing up for themselves, or simply by rewarding the customer, not even doing anything to the employee. This happens fairly often too. The employee won't get reprimanded or anything like that. They won't get written up, but they will give the customer a gift card or some kind of reward to try and smooth out things with the customer. And basically what that's saying is, yes, we agree with the customer and we care about them more than you. Now you go one step above that and you get to retail management. The one time the company will stick up for the employee is when they're dealing with their direct manager. And I'm not kidding here. I've had employees lie through their teeth about me, and I was investigated and considered guilty until proven innocent every single time it has happened. And it generally would happen, like the one I remember the most was an employee wanted to go on lunch at a very specific time. And I knew how the store was running that day. I knew that I think we had a Packers game that day that was getting out a little, or was ending a little bit before this employee wanted to go on lunch. And so what I knew is we were going to have a rush at that point. And so about an hour before it happened, I just go on the phone and go, hey, this person that I'm not going to name, it's dead in the store right now. Why don't you go and take your lunch now? Because I'm pretty sure we're going to be busy when you normally take your lunch. And the employee hated me beyond anything. I'd moved from another store to fix this store because it hadn't made profit in 10 years. And that particular employee was considered the best salesman in the store. And as far as trackable sales, they had sold 2 things that you could actually track for sales in like a year. And the justification was always, well, you don't understand this market. It's not possible to do more than that. I came in and within 2 weeks, I had outsold the year-to-date totals of every single person in the store combined. Because not only was I a really good salesman, but I also didn't have kind of the apathetic nature that everyone in the store just accepted that you couldn't sell anything here, so nobody tried. So the kid hated me. I go, hey, why don't you go ahead and take your break? He goes, nah, I'm gonna wait. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you right now. If we're in the middle of a rush, I don't think I'm gonna be able to let you go. You're the only person on the registers right now. He's like, no, I'm gonna go when I want to go. I said, okay, I'm just telling you, if you go right now, I can guarantee you're going to get a lunch when you want, or you're gonna get a lunch right now. If you wait, you may have to wait until after the rush is over because I can't have you. I can't be short-staffed in the middle of a rush. He's like, no, I'm gonna go. All right, whatever. Sure enough, 6 o'clock comes around. We are in a absolutely massive rush. I am the only person on the sales floor. Everyone else in the store is on a register, and we're also short-staffed to this day. And so I'm trying to take care of this as a sales floor because that's my job. And I hear over the headset, hey, I'm going on break. And I immediately go, no, you're not. He goes, what did you say to me? I said, you're not going on break. I told you earlier. I can't have you going in the middle of the rush. I literally have no one else that can cover the registers right now. You're going to have to wait for probably about at least 20 or 30 minutes for someone else to get for free. He's like, no, I'm going now. I said, I am telling you right now, I cannot allow you to go on lunch. Whatever you decide to do is entirely up to you. But I personally cannot give you permission to go on lunch right now because we're in the middle of a rush. It's like, fine, I don't care. And he walks off. Now, this was a really bad employee. We knew that they had been stealing from the company. We just were not able to document it enough. And this particular employee was really, really good at using the tip line to basically threaten anyone that attempted to get him fired. So we wanted to get rid of him. We couldn't get rid of him because it would turn into a lawsuit. And so as soon as this happened, and he goes, yeah, I'm just going to leave. I said, I'm telling you, you can't leave. Now, I can't stop you, so you do whatever it is that you feel that you need to do. But I'm telling you right now, you do not have permission to leave, to go on lunch. And so he leaves. In Wisconsin, that's called job abandonment. And you can instantly be fired for that. Unfortunately, I had another manager that I was training at the time that didn't understand what was going on, and I needed him doing the job that he was already doing, but he went on the headset and went, hey, I'll go ahead and cover registers. And I chewed him out later. I said, never, ever contradict the manager on duty when they've said something, because you have just created an extremely bad situation. And sure enough, what happened was that employee, on his way back to the break room, got his phone, and as he was walking out, he was on his phone with the tip line claiming that I had racially discriminated against him because I was white. I still am, if you guys couldn't tell. And he was black, or African American, whatever. There was like a 3 or 4 month investigation into me. I had to prove that it didn't happen. I had tons of witnesses, and it didn't really matter. I was at fault for what happened, and I had situations where I got yelled at by employees. I got physically attacked one time. There's nothing that was ever done to protect me as a manager because I was a low-level manager. And all the way until you got up to basically the district level where you weren't tied to a particular store, you were worthless. An employee could say anything they wanted to you, and the same thing would happen. The corporate would sometimes we would be reprimanded for it, more often than for employees. But bare minimum, they would reward the employees for their bad behavior, basically saying, "Hey, we don't care about you." So going back to this idea that streaming is more emotionally draining than like a 9 to 5, it isn't. But the thing is, streaming sucks. Just like retail sucks. Just like being a computer programmer sucks. Just like being a teacher sucks. Every job sucks. And something that a lot of people don't realize is when a camera is rolling, whether you intend to or not, you are performing. If you know someone is watching you, you will perform. You will never, ever be as calm and cool as you are when no one's watching than when you know someone is watching or might be watching. So doing 8 hours every day, like 5 or 6 days a week, like a lot of these pro streamers do, is emotionally draining because you are performing for 8 hours a day. That is more than Broadway actors. Broadway actors generally do 8 shows a week, and a show in general lasts about 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on the show. You might have ones that go close to about 2 hours, but generally going to be in there about 2 to 3 hours, and you're not on that entire 3 hours. On really rough days, 2 or 2-day shows, or 2 show days, that's what it is. I always forget it, but basically, in order for them to have days off, they will do 2 show days. And so basically they will have days where they do like a matinee and then they do a night performance and they have like an hour in between. Even on those days, they are only performing maybe for an hour, hour and a half. When you consider scene changes, when you consider the time that they're not on stage, even if they are a lead actor, they're only performing a few hours a day. For a Twitch streamer, they don't really get breaks. Like, yeah, they'll take 5 minutes to go to the bathroom or something like that, but they are consistently performing for 6 to 8 hours a day. That is incredibly draining. From an actor, that is incredibly difficult to do. And so I completely understand where all of these streamers, I believe Asmongold kind of backed him up and said, yeah, being a streamer is a lot more emotionally draining than a 9 to 5. It isn't. Because 9 to 5 has its own, working in a cubicle has its own set of emotionally draining things. Being a manager has its own set of emotionally draining things. Being a salesman has its own set of emotionally draining situations. Every job sucks, and every one of them can become emotionally draining very, very quickly. They just suck in different ways. And I think that's the discourse that a lot of people are missing. For these streamers, I will guarantee none of these streamers have done significant amounts of work in retail. If they think that and they definitely have never held a 9 to 5 job. And that's why they think, well, my job is significantly harder than everyone else's. Because they know what people think they do. And they actually know what they do because they did to do it. And the knowledge gap between those two positions is really, really big. And it upsets them because people are basically accusing them of having the greatest job in the world. And it's not. It's a job. It sucks. It's not fun a lot of the time. And so they're getting upset about that. And I know Asmongold specifically, I don't know if it's a character or this is actually how he thinks. But Asmongold specifically has this tendency to aggrandize the things. When something bad happens, this is the worst thing that has ever happened in the entirety of the world. Somebody upsets him. Well, you're stupid. You want to know how stupid you are? You are the stupidest. He catastrophizes things, and he just takes them to the absolute biggest thing. I'm the best player in the world. You are the dumbest person in the world. He just constantly does this, and it's not an uncommon thing for streamers in general to do, because it gets them views. Aggrandizing and catastrophizing and making everything seem extremely important and massive gets views. So again, it may just be a learned response. This is how I interact with people. It may be that they actually believe that. I can tell you another person that likes to aggrandize things. I am the greatest businessman in the world. Trust me. And it was the greatest plan that has ever been. No one has ever had a plan that was greater than mine. And it was the greatest inauguration with the biggest group that has ever been there. No president in the history of presidents have ever been. And I have the best hair that has ever existed. If you ever see someone doing that, it's not an uncommon thing for people in positions of power to do that. I had a boss that used to do that. He wasn't this huge, multi-billion-dollar or million. He wasn't a millionaire or anything. He owned like 4 Domino's pizzas, and he talked like Ted from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But he was still, I don't understand what you guys are doing. I mean, this is the worst pizza I've ever seen in my life. How can you be putting this stuff out? We're going to lose every single one of our customers because you guys just can't make a pizza correctly. Why are you not watching it in the oven? We have the window there so that you can pop any bubbles before they turn into these giant mess. Nobody wants to eat that. Do you want to eat that? Do you? Hey, I ask you a question, dude. Dude, do you want to eat that? And if we said, yeah, actually, he's like, oh, and now we're being funny, huh? You think you're the funniest person in the world? It's just an extremely common thing for people in power, I guess, to do. Yeah. So the whole point about this kind of the tirade about streaming is the most emotionally draining. It's not. Every job is emotionally draining. At some way, some point, every job sucks. Does that mean does that lessen what the streamer was going through? Does that mean they need to just shut up because their job is good? No, they have a very difficult job, just like everybody else. And for this particular job, if you don't take the time off, you will 100% burn out and leave the industry. We're seeing a lot of that happening now. Streaming is not a 20 or 30 year career. I mean, if we actually look at numbers that we're seeing, because streaming has not been a job has not been something that you could do professionally for more than a little over a decade. So now we're starting to see the actual lifespan of a quote unquote career in streaming. And yeah, it's looking like somewhere between about 6 to 10 years is relatively average for a streaming career. If you compare that to something like programming, the average programming career, not job, but career, generally will last anywhere from about 20 to 40 years before you finally get to the point where something happens and you have to either change career fields or retire. Teaching used to be a 50 or 60 year career for a lot of teachers. I think if you actually look at the average, it drops pretty drastically because there's a lot of people that get into teaching thinking it's one thing and then find out it's absolutely 100% not. And then drop out after teaching for maybe a year or two. But I think like the average tenure of most teachers is somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 years. If you look at something like construction, average construction job. If you work in construction, you're probably going to be in construction for the rest of your life. That's just kind of how it works. So yeah, we're starting to see the kind of end of careers because it is so damning. Something I don't think a lot of people will realize. Professional sports and professional athletes, their careers are generally relatively short. Like your career in the NFL, If you make it 10 years, that's a really long career. I don't know. Well, here, I'll actually look it up before I talk out of my ass. Average length of NFL career. Average career length of an NFL player is 3.3 years. Running backs specifically have an average career length of under 2.6 years. Something that a lot of people don't realize is if you're a professional athlete and you make it to something like the NFL, after your career is over, your job life is over. Playing professional sports is so incredibly damaging on your body, especially if you make it past that 3-year mark. Like people that make it for 6, 7, 8 years. 9 times out of 10, most of the cartilage is gone out of the joints they use the most. They will generally have, especially if we're talking the NFL, most of them have had enough brain trauma that it leaves permanent damage. Now, the length of that permanent damage is currently being debated, but no one is going to argue that it doesn't permanently change their life. A lot of football players simply can never hold another job. They technically qualify as disabled, just like 100% permanent in total, because their body just doesn't work anymore. And that's why you hear about a lot of professional athletes that a few years after getting out, no longer playing, they're bankrupt. It's because they literally can't work anymore, and they went from making millions of dollars a year to zero without their life changing at all. And that's why a lot of really smart players will generally go into some kind of management style or ownership style position. They will invest in a sports team, or they'll buy a restaurant or something like that, and they basically can make money off of other people doing stuff and them just applying capital to it. So yeah, I guess the whole point of this video is I don't think this particular streamer is exaggerating how difficult it is to be a full-time streamer. I think they're 100% right in that aspect. I think they don't understand how difficult other jobs are because they're young and the majority of their working life they have only been a streamer. And so they simply do not understand how difficult other jobs are. And just like the people that they don't like that have been claiming that their job is super, super easy, they're doing the exact same thing to 9-to-5 office workers, thinking their job is so easy. It's not. Every job sucks. They will always suck. They will never stop sucking. Every single job has an aspect to it where if you knew that was something you were going to have to deal with, you would never sign up for it. It's just how it is. And for streaming, there's a couple different things. The amount of abuse that most streamers get is astronomical. And some people it doesn't affect them at all. And some people it affects them greatly. And then the fact that you are performing for 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, that is intense. That is incredibly difficult. So yes, it is very hard to be a streamer. It's not something that everyone can do. I cannot do that. I physically am incapable of doing anything close to that. I ran my first 4-hour D&D session in like 6 years on a Friday, and it nearly killed me. And that is a single 4-hour session that I wasn't streaming. I was just running a D&D game for friends. That's all it was. So yeah, no, I wish people were allowed to have more conversations about this instead of it entirely turning into who's right and who's wrong. in this particular instance, everybody's right and everybody's wrong, because you have a lot of people that don't understand jobs outside their particular field of expertise, claiming absolute knowledge of jobs outside their particular expertise, which is not an uncommon thing. This has happened. This has always happened. I had a conversation with a bunch of friends who'd all worked retail, and who all talked about how lazy managers are and how easy it is to be a manager. And if they could just be a manager, their lives would be so much better. And I just sat there going, you guys, first of all, you guys could never be managers, because anyone with that kind of attitude would fail immediately. And second of all, being a manager sucks. You have all the responsibility, none of the protection. And you will fight for your life on a regular basis. One of your employees does something wrong, it's your fault. You do something wrong, it's your fault. One of your employees claims you did something wrong, it's your fault that they thought that you did something wrong. Everything is your fault. And the absolute favorite thing in the world for upper management to use on lower management is, we will fire you. Your job is always on the line. And if you get fired as a manager, you can't just apply to another store and get another management position. If you get fired as a manager, depending on what happens, you can be blackballed from the industry. You may never work as a manager again. So it's not like being an employee where if you lose your job, you literally can go across the street and get the exact same pay to do something very, very similar. It just doesn't work that way. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Like I said, I still feel like shit. But sometimes talking about stuff like this is helpful. And it makes me feel like I'm not a complete waste of space. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. I will see you all tomorrow. All right? Bye-bye.